There was damn little fun in it and too much pressure. Lee Luther would have preferred making the trip with Sparky or Bill Tobias or Ray Fisher, or even Bear Winston, the big Welshman who'd never been known to smile. "I reckon I had you up a little late last night, fogging tomahawk wash for strays." With that, Navarro reined out around the Remuda's left flank to gather up a meandering paint and to begin turning the group slightly south. "I'll do better next time," he heard the kid call over the clumps of galloping hooves. "I know you will," Navarro said, amazed at himself. Christ, was he getting soft or just old? 10 minutes later, the Butterfield station rose from the liquid mirages and the chaparral, the long, low cabin puffing smoke from its field rock chimney, and the corrals swaying up against the split cordwood behind the barn. Navarro saw that Mordecai Hawkins had the main corral gate open. He waved to the old man, who returned the gesture. Deftly maneuvering their well-trained cutting ponies, Tom and Lee Luther rode back and forth along the Remuda's left and right flanks, hazing the herd with their lariats and barking orders, breathing into the neckerchiefs and squinting their eyes against the dust. They strung the horses out single file, 3 or 4 wide, and guided the leader through the gate. Not a minute later, the entire Remuda was inside the corral's peeled log fence, blowing and shaking their heads. The dry dust and manure sifted. A big cream in the adjoining corral lifted its long snout and gave an obstinate whinny, setting off several answering nickers and deep-throated chuffs in the new Remuda. The big bay pranced around the corral with an insolent, exasperated air, as though looking for a fight. Mordecai Hawkins, an old hide hunter who'd started hustling for the Butterfield Company a half-dozen years ago, choked on the dust as he closed and latched the gate. The portly oldster, a good 10 or 15 years older than Tom's 50, wore torn duck pants, suspenders, and mule-ear boots. His hide hat sat crooked on his salt and pepper head, slanting a shadow across his bearded face. "Nice-looking stock, Tom. Damn nice-looking. But can they pull a stagecoach?" "That's your job, Mordecai," Navarro said. "When you don't have nothing else to do around here, you can break 'em to the hitch." Hawkins offered a snide grin. "When I don't have nothing else to do." "This is Lee Luther," Navarro said, leaning forward on his saddle horn and nodding toward the boy riding up on his right. "Lee Luther, Mordecai Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins is the hostler here." "And chief Indian fighter and horse shoer," Hawkins said. "When I ain't repairing windmill blades or—" "Don't listen to that old reprobate," a woman's voice said. "I have to roust him out of bed with a shotgun most mornings and fire over his head every so often to keep him from nodding off." Navarro turned to see a svelte, brown-eyed woman with cherry-red hair walking toward them from the cabin. Her hair was pulled back in a French braid, and her dress, a shade darker than her hair, clung to her long, high-waisted body in all the right places. The low neckline, revealing a modest peak of freckled cleavage, was trimmed with white lace. The cameo pin on her right lapel winked in the desert sun. "That only happened a couple times," Hawkins grumbled. As the woman approached, she gazed up at Navarro, an affable light in her expressive eyes. "Hello, Tom." Navarro pinched his hat brim. "Louise, nice to see you again." "It's been a couple months." She held his gaze and smiled, her teeth flashing in her wide mouth as expressive as her eyes. She had lips neither too full nor too thin, but just right. Navarro stared back at her for a long, awkward moment, then caught himself and jerked his thumb at the boy in the buckskin. "Louise, this is Lee Luther." She reached up with her hand. "Hello, Mr. Luther." "Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Talon. Heard a lot about you on the way down here." She arched her brows at Navarro, but spoke to the boy. "What did you hear?" Under her gaze, Tom's face heated, and he turned his eyes to the corral where several horses were drawing from stock tanks. Lee Luther said, "Just about how you and Mr. Navarro met in Mexico last year, when you was trailing them slavers that took your hired girl. Boy, he sure was right, though." Lee Luther shook his head, his eyes riveted on Louise. "You sure are pretty, Mrs. Talon." "Why, thank you, Mr. Luther." Louise slid her gaze back to Tom. "Or should I thank Mr. Navarro?" "I never thought it was true at all about pretty women," the boy continued. "What?" Louise asked. "That they was mulish and hard to get along with, and that red-headed ones were twice as hard."